How's it going, everyone?
Hey Jack,
What's
how
up?
are you?
What's up?
How you doing? How you doing?
Trying to get some leads.
Nice, man. Yeah, that one in Jacksonville looks pretty good. I'm hoping we can get that one wrapped up. The agent responded to the email I sent to the LOI, and she just asked a couple questions like, "Hey, how long is are you guys going to be taking this over sub two? Do you just refi out of this question mark?" But that guy's in Australia, sounds motivated, so I think we can probably make something work there. I'm hoping. Um,
Amazing. Yeah, yeah. He
yeah,
got relocated to Australia. Like I said, they did get another created offer. That I think she had. I'm not sure if she had presented it to him or not yet. I forget.
Yeah. It must have not been great because I was like, oh shit, they have another offer. Because with that 13K loan that has to be paid off at closing plus agent commission, I'm like, we're at like a 14% entry. If we're trying to pay the seller some money too. And then she's like, the seller wanted 3K initially, but I think he'd be willing to just take less than that as long as he walks away with something. So I'm like, okay, perfect. Let's
Yeah, I
offer
think
1K.
that's what she mentioned that he would receive net if he were to do it traditionally.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he'd get like 3,500 net after
Gotcha.
all costs.
Yeah. So I offered one and I'm hoping we can make something work with that. So fingers crossed on that. And then
Let's hope
Ronald
so.
with that one we were just talking about. Um, I think we can talk about it after this or later this evening. Oh, I guess it's evening for
Okay.
you, but later
Yeah.
tonight for me. Um, I think we're gonna have to pitch some sort of carry then if they want right at ask price. Because if we're coming in, um, shoot, let me see here.
And he just tried to up the ante on me and told me, instead of sending another LOI, can you send an offer, actual offer? I was like,
Yeah, we could
okay,
probably
guy.
do that later tonight. I could send over an actual contract in writing. But I just have to look though and underwrite it more because that was just kind of just an offer thrown out there. But we'd
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
have to do
last minute.
a decent carry of because they had it listed at 435. Yeah, he'd probably have to carry like 50K equity or something or 40 or something like that. I'd have to look at it again.
Yeah, because he said at that price that we sent to him, he said they had some previous offers at that price and sellers don't want it. So
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, so if
yeah,
they're open to a carry, that could work. But I mean, if we're giving them any more than, let me see, any more than $20,000 at closing, probably is going to be a deal killer.
yeah. Well, I think the 15. I think he said that's not a problem
Oh,
at the
it's just he
15.
wants a carry. They want to be able to get the.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
then yeah, we could probably do that. I just like we literally talked about it for 3 minutes, and I just took a quick glance at it. But so
Yeah, that
before
was
I
like the
definitely put,
fastest LOI we did.
yeah, before I put a contract out, though, I definitely have to look at it a bit more.
Yeah.
All right. We'll give it another minute or so to let a couple more people join. We'll see if some more people join up today. Today was just, I think the way we're going to structure these is every Tuesday. And maybe we'll switch it on and off, but like one weekly meeting, we'll have it be like a topic, sort of like Saturdays where we went over underwriting and wraps and whatnot. Whereas I think every Tuesday we'll make that call more of like a role play and Q&A and practicing the calling, so to speak, and speaking with agents. So I think that's what we'll primarily do on Tuesdays. Got to confirm it with Alex. So Alex, I think he's on a plane right now, so he's not going to be joining us today. But yeah, so we'll just kind of do our normal check-in, and then there's a couple things I wanted to mention and go over too. And one of those has to do with kind of making offers on properties that have some equity, just like that one we're talking about, Ronald, where there is some equity in the deal and it's not just a scenario where, hey, here's cash or hey, we just take this over sub two and don't pay anything cash of like, how do I know where we need to be at ballpark range if we're making an offer where there's equity in the deal? So that's one thing I was going to screen share and go over really quickly too. But before that, we can touch on, well, I guess just open the floor to some questions and some check-ins, and then I'll touch on that, and then we'll go into breakout rooms and do just some role play with the cold calling. But yeah, if anyone wants to just check in and well, first I'm curious with anyone that's gotten some new lists here. Does that data seem better? Because I don't know. Alex usually takes care of a lot of the list pulling and kind of the back end side of things. But I know we implemented that new tool, and today we're kind of seeing more leads being generated than previously. So we're thinking that tool is making a difference. I'm just wondering if you guys have noticed that, or with those new
Yeah,
lists that have been
absolutely.
sent out.
Absolutely. The first two off the list was like a warm lead. So yeah, I say yeah. Plus, it seems like it's a lot more data that I
Yeah,
can kind of go off of
awesome,
on the list.
cool, 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 cool. Glad to hear that. Um, anything else from anyone, Sebastian? I just saw you unmute.
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna say that even the loan balance and the interest rate seem to be fairly accurate. So that's a good starting point to understand, uh, if there's equity or not in the house. And but yeah, the leads are coming in that we're getting from these new lists seem to be better for what we're looking for sure.
Awesome, cool. Glad to hear that, because that's gonna separate us a lot from everyone else that's doing this. Because most people are just doing, hey, prop stream, pull the list, and not skipping it again like we're doing. So that's really kind of keying in on the data. And then of course we just do that at a higher scale. So originally we pull a list of like 500, and then that would be our list. But then now we pull a list of 500 and it skims it down to like 80. And then of course we just have to pull more data, but at least that data is better quality than the previous data. So that's good to know. And then Pierce, I saw you on mute for a second. Do you want to add something or ask a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering if any of y'all has had the same addresses on a few of the lists that y'all have had. Because about the last two lists that I've had like the same addresses on there. So I'm just curious if
So
that's the same for some of y'all.
so you're saying you know what it is, because someone mentioned this before, there's overlap from county. So sometimes if because we're pulling data by county rather than city, because if we're pulling by city, that's just going to take a ton of time. Whereas county, it's kind of getting the large city and then kind of the outskirt smaller cities that are surrounding it. So we've been pulling by
Yeah.
county, and sometimes there's overlap with counties. And then also too, I think I have to talk to Alex. I think we're updating lists every 2 weeks or so. So occasionally there might be some overlap too. So that's probably
Okay.
what that is.
Yeah.
Just occasionally. But like I said, we're trying to tweak um, our systems and processes and everything to make it as good as possible. So if that's something a lot of you
Mhm.
guys are seeing, definitely let us
Yeah,
know, and we will maybe filter it out. And because we definitely want to be, you know, the market's always changing, new houses are becoming available, things like that. So we don't want to just say, okay, let's pull a list for Jacksonville area and then forget about it and 3 months later pull another one. Like we want to be on top of it, but I'm sure there's a way we could filter out um, lists that, yeah, I have to talk with Alex about that because that's more of his thing. So glad you brought that up though.
Gotcha.
And then Ronald, were you about to say something? No? Gotcha.
yeah. I was gonna tell him. I noticed it too, and I think I was speaking to the same person. And I think she realized it that I called the same number again. So
Oh,
I
gotcha.
told her that I was basically, I'm speaking to so many people and we're closing so many deals. So I'm sorry for calling you again. But if you have anything, laying around, it's you. So she thought that was kind of funny. So
Gotcha.
yeah, I
Gotcha.
noticed that overlap. Yeah,
Gotcha. I'll make note of that. You guys just noticed a little bit, or has it been a decent amount of times?
I think I had maybe off the top of my head recognizing numbers. Well, not numbers, but addresses. I think I maybe had four top so
Okay.
far.
Gotcha. And nothing can be 100% perfect, but I'm just trying to think of how we can minimize that as much as possible. But that's definitely more of an Alex thing that I will talk with him about, and see how we could maybe do that. I'm trying to think with prop stream filters and also filtering it out through the data we already pulled. I'm sure there's a way we can likely do that. And some of these it's just good to even follow up to, like if we pull a new list for that same county 2 weeks later, then it doesn't hurt to call that
Exactly.
person again as well.
Exactly.
So anyone have anything they want to share, anything they've noticed this week before we kind of dive into things a little bit? Any questions or wins or anything like that? Bertha, did you
Yeah, yeah. I didn't have any wins, but I just started my new list this week, and I noticed them. We have more information like interest rates and everything, so it was nice to have that. And the agents that I called, I called four, I think, and they all sort of knew about sub two, so it was easier to speak with them. But still, like they were like, no, they're not interested. But it was kind of nice to talk to them because they already knew about it. That's
awesome.
what I got so far.
Gotcha. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, and yeah, that is another point to add to with those new lists. They are going to include that, but I still don't know 100% confidently if those interest rates are going to be 100% accurate. Should be more accurate than PropStream, but we never really know for sure until we have the agent confirm with the seller and read us numbers off the recent mortgage statement, or actually send a picture over that statement over. One thing I want to update on too is in the Discord, when you go to the helpful documents, we have the LOI template there now. So when you click on that LOI template, the only time we're going to be using this is if there's a scenario where an agent says, just send me something over in writing. I'm not giving you any information on the monthly payment, the balance, or I don't know it. Just send something over in writing and I can present it to my sellers. So in a scenario like that, that's when you would use, or actually I'll screen share it really quick. Let me see here. So that's when you would use this, and it's going to be helpful documents right down there, LOI template. You must make a copy of that. And if they give you exact numbers, that's when you want to submit the lead to us, because that's what we need to actually formulate an offer and like truly underwrite it. The only time you want to be doing this is if it's a scenario where, hey, I don't know those numbers, just send me something over in writing, or if that agent's really firm and doesn't want to release any information, then you have this template here where you would just fill in the address, agent name, address again, basically explaining the breakdown here. So the purchase price will consist of the following, which would be the mortgage balance, cash to seller, closing costs, agent commission, and then you would just insert your name and phone number there. Then once we get our website up and running, I think we're going to kind of change this a bit and have it integrated within our website. So that's that. Any questions on that first before I go to the next thing? All right.
I just want to add that, yeah, I've kind of been using that when the agent is open to presenting creative financing to the seller. They at the moment do not have their the PITI information or loan balance and interest rate, and they do want something in writing. So I've been using this to kind of get the ball rolling, and then just let them know, hey, but I do ask them for that, and then I say, once you get me that information, then we can submit a formal offer. But this will allow, and then I send that LOI along with the frequently asked questions about subject to and things like that, so they can explain better to the seller. And because some of the people I call, some of the agents are like, oh, you're like the 15th person, 20th person, and then some of them like, oh, like what is that? And then that helps them explain that to the sellers.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad you're taking advantage of that. And as all of this is pretty, I guess this team and the system we're building out is somewhat new. Like we've only been doing this for like 3 weeks. So, and Sebastian, I believe it was you who wanted a testimonial video, right? One of the sellers, one of the agents. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's one thing too, where I can text. I just have to think how I have to do this, and also try to think legally too. If I have to have that seller sign something, letting them know I'm going to put them on a website and pay them whatever $100 or something like that. But I think that would be great too, and it would separate us a lot from these other offers they're getting if we have a very legit professional website, which we're working on right now. And then also too, we have testimonials and things like that. So I actually already texted a deal that I closed on a couple of weeks ago in Oklahoma. The sellers were super cool, and really good experience they had with me on that deal. So they already said they'd be open to doing that. I just have to think, I just don't want just a verbal, okay, yeah, I'll send a video, you can post it on your website. I want something in writing just to cover me, just in case. So I think that'd be a good addition to have some testimonials and also some like paragraphs from sellers, and then potentially some videos from agents I've worked with too, to incorporate them in the website, where then when we're working with an agent and they ask for the name of the company and things, we'll have our website header, our link to the website and things like that, where they can kind of explore and have a lot of their questions answered through our website. So I think that'll be very helpful and will set us apart from other people that are making offers too, which will be great. And what was the other thing I wanted to show? Okay, yeah, the other thing I wanted to show was, so you're going to be using this when, like we just said, you're not really getting any numbers or information they don't know, and they want something on writing before they ask the seller for those numbers. Then another example too is some of these deals we've been seeing lately have some equity in them. So we're always trying to stay less than a 10% entry fee. There are some exceptions sometimes. Most of the time, though, we're trying to stay less than a 10% entry. So with that, say if someone has, we were just looking at a deal. Let me stop, not like it matters, but let me stop screen share for a sec and just erase the address. And I'll kind of run through this number breakdown here on this. And then also I asked Alex about it. We're still trying to see which one we can share from like a free group that isn't like NDA'd, because some of the private calculators and stuff from the sub-2 group, from the paid group we're in, you have to sign NDAs for the contracts and things like that and some of the tools. So we can't share them outside of the group, but I know there are free ones too. Still waiting to hear from Alex on which ones we could share that would be helpful. But let me screen share again here. So basically then, Ronald and I were just talking about, I think this is the number breakdown for this one actually. But this one has, for example, listed at 435, balance 366. If we are offering, the seller traditionally would net close to 35 grand on this one. But if we offered 35 grand to the seller, we'd be all in at a 12, almost a 13% entry fee. And unfortunately, well, and if you add some holding costs as well, that's going to bump it up higher. So probably close to a 14%. And unfortunately, for a deal like this one, where it's probably not going to cash flow as a long-term rental, and it's not super appealing in terms of other exit strategies, you got to be below 10%. And there was a lead, I think Paul, you submitted it. It was in that Phoenix metro area. And they had like other sub-2 offers with like 30 or 40K cash to seller when the house is worth about 400K. So to have a competitive offer, we have to be at 40K plus the agent commission of 11K plus closing costs. So now it's like almost 60K, and the house is worth 400K, and it's a 6.125 or something like that percent interest rate. So it's like, there's no exit for us. Maybe we could wholesale it, but when you're looking at that high of an interest rate, no exit, then you're kind of limited on, okay, I have to be probably lower than a 10%. So like this one here, Ronald, that we were talking about, we have to be probably lower than a 10% entry, just because, at least from my quick like 5-minute glance of it, there's not really an exit there unless someone who has a lot of money just wants it for a depreciation write-off. Could be a potential rent by the room. We'd have to look for it more, but just not a traditional exit of like a long-term rental, so to speak. So what we would do typically to figure out of like, if it's a hybrid scenario where there's a decent amount of equity in the deal, I'm sure a question is, how much can I offer down to the seller? So if the seller needs, in this instance here, the spread between the 360 and the 430, that's like 70K or so. So the seller would need 70K, but I can't give the seller 70K cash because the seller's dead set on wanting close to their list price of 435. So if I gave that seller 70K cash, that's like a 20% entry fee, which doesn't make any sense because there's really not an exit that's appealing to this anyway. But what we could do instead is offer lower cash to seller, like 15K. Well, we could even start lower, but that's what we started at here. 15K, and then we would offer a carry. So then with the carry portion, that's like the seller finance portion, where we would then say, trying to remember what we offered here, Ronald. I don't know if it was 30K, something like that, whatever. We'd seller finance the remaining portion of that equity to the seller in terms of we're always going to start lowest rather than our max allowable offer, because there's usually always going to be a counter. So we never want to start at, okay, if we're carrying 40K, I think the max we could pay them monthly on that to where it doesn't kill the deal is like 200 a month. So let's tell them we could do $200 a month principal only payments. We don't want to do that because they're probably going to counter. So I'm usually starting not where it's such a low ball where it's offensive, but low enough where we still have a decent margin or spread to go up to our max allowable offer. So if someone says like, hey, I'm not going to hold this mortgage forever, I need an 8-year balloon on it, I say, oh, wow, well, typically we're looking at just the full maturity on the remaining balance of the loan, which is usually close to 30 years. But I could do a 15-year balloon. And in my mind, I know we usually don't like to go below 10 years. So they're at 8, I just said 15 rather than 10, because if they're at 8 and I'm at 10, they might not come up to where I'm at. And then likely we meet somewhere in the middle between like 10 and 12. So that's really not something you have to think about too much right now. This is more so for like future scenarios and the more you guys grow with this stuff and deals you do. But that's just something like, and it's not just real estate. I'm sure like a lot of you guys who've done sales and whatnot too, like know that, but it's really helpful with negotiating these deals. So rule of thumb then would usually be about 1 to 5% of the entry fee or the purchase price would be cash to seller at closing. That's just one kind of an idea to get if you're going to do a carry, because then one thing you have to factor in for too, if an agent's getting like on this deal here on a $400,000 balance, an agent's getting $11,000 commission, just 3%, which is pretty, decent amount. So that's a big factor to account for in terms of your entry fee. So ideally, just in this scenario here to kind of beat out that other offer, this is probably a little high if we're offering a carry, but I wasn't sure if they were open to a carry or not. So we're gonna stay at this. But ideally next time, if this wasn't as hot of a lead, we probably would have started a little lower than a 15K down to seller. So just rule of thumb wise, probably offering cash to seller if there's a lot of equity in the scenario where you have to do a hybrid where it's going to be the sub 2 and then partially an owner carry where they carry the remaining equity. I would always start with like a 1 to 5% entry, so to speak, where the cash you're offering them in their pocket at closing is 1 to 5%, and then the rest is going to be a carry. So that's just kind of a good rule of thumb for that. That's just one thing I wanted to touch on briefly, because I know still occasionally within the data, we do get kind of mixed in deals that have a decent amount of equity in them. And it's more so in those higher end markets where the purchase prices are over 400K. We don't really see that as much as in the cheaper markets, but still can definitely make hybrid deals happen. We've definitely done them and people do them frequently and are open to them. But that's just something I wanted to touch on there. Any questions on that?
Hey, Jack. Hi, everyone. I wanted to find out, obviously I spoke to you briefly, or I messaged you briefly about the case that we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
Similar sort of situation with high equity, well, extremely high equity actually in this case.
Yeah.
You mentioned the balloon. I was wondering if you could, I know it's not always relevant, but I just wondered if you could explain a little bit more about a balloon, because the agent was asking me about it, and I kind of fell short on the explanation. So I was just hoping that you could help me out, because what I saw on Google and what I said still fell short on some of the questions that he was asking, and I just wasn't able to answer some questions. For
Gotcha.
example, I think he mentioned like okay, at the end of the 10 years, are we when you pay the lump sum, are you paying the lump sum as at today's amount, or as the appreciated amount or appreciated value at the time? So yeah.
So if you're referring to, well, I guess it would work both ways with a carry as well too. You're going to be paying off So say in 10 years from now they wanted a balloon, you'd be paying off the balloon on the remaining mortgage balance. So it doesn't factor in the appreciation. So say if say now I took over a house sub 2 that was worth 200K and that's what the balance was, 200K. And 10 years from now, say that house was now worth 300K. The balance remaining on that mortgage would probably be like 150K, and I would pay off the 150K. I wouldn't have to pay off the 300K what the house is worth, because that's what that bank loan is. The bank loan isn't really going to appreciate with the value of the house. And that's what's nice about well, I shouldn't say nice about balloons, because we don't want to do them, because you're essentially betting on, hey, the house is going to appreciate a very good amount for me to cash out, refi, or sell the house or something like that. So we never mention balloons really, unless it's on a carry portion of equity, or if the seller's really pushing for it, because it makes it harder for us. One of our main exit strategies is wraps. So with the wrap, we then seller finance or rent to own type of scenario to an end buyer. So they're paying us monthly for the house, and then we have to then push the balloon onto them. So basically, we had a deal under contract. It just fell through though with a balloon in it. The agent kind of lied about the condition, and it was a big mess yesterday. But that one had a 10-year balloon, and we were going to wrap it. So the end buyer on that deal would then have to pay off that remaining balance within 10 years. So that's going to scare away not a ton, because 10 years is a decent amount of time, where that's so far down the line where people are probably like, oh, the house is going to appreciate a lot. Hopefully my credit's better, then I'll refi or I'll just sell it. But the lesser you go, that's kind of more of a gray area and question mark. Some could consider it predatory lending if you're doing a balloon within a couple of years on like a rent to own scenario, because that's not necessarily setting someone up in a great spot who might not have good credit or something like that. And then also too, that's, yeah, it just kind of gets a little shady with the Dodd-Frank Act, which has a bunch of laws and rules about predatory lending for like rent to own scenarios and stuff like that. But then also too, as an investor, the thing that's so appealing about sub twos is I don't have to use any of my own credit. And then once you start talking about balloons, unless I just want to sell the property and just profit and hope it appreciated a decent amount in that time period, then I'd have to refi out and use my own credit. It's just, we can do balloons, but the lesser you go, the harder it is to find a safe exit strategy. And then also the harder it is to try to wholesale the deal to someone. Because I don't know if you've seen in a lot of the groups, like a lot of people will not want to touch balloons in general. But definitely 10 years plus is a safe area where it doesn't really bother me, but anything less than 10 years, I don't really want to touch unless it's like a grand slam home run deal. Then we could maybe do a 7-year, but for something that like breaks even as a long-term rental or doesn't really have an exit, a balloon would just be a deal killer.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
And sorry, that was kind of long. I don't know if I answered,
No, it's fine.
answered the question. Did I answer the question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, great. We'll have like another 5 minutes or so, 10 minutes for questions or check-ins before we go into breakout rooms and do some phone call role playing and whatnot. Just wondering if anyone has any other questions or comments. Nope. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, Sheree.
Okay, so my question, it is kind of funny, and you're gonna already know it, but it's the difference between like hybrid and sub two. I feel like I know exactly what it is, but when I start trying to explain it to an agent, I just start fumbling, and like I go on, my brain can't even comprehend it the right way. So, do you have
Gotcha.
any suggestions?
Yeah. So just my explanation to you of what the hybrid is in comparison to the sub two. Yeah. So
Yeah, exactly.
okay, gotcha. Yeah. So the sub two is essentially just us coming in and taking over the existing mortgage payment. Likely that's going to be the scenario where there's not much equity, or we're just paying a seller a little bit of cash at closing. Where a hybrid is going to be sort of like that scenario we were just talking about, where we're doing sub two, but then there's also a decent amount of equity. So then we're doing a seller finance or the owner carry portion on their equity. So let's say a house is worth, let's say someone wants 500K for their house. The mortgage balance is 300K. there's a lot of equity there where I'm not just going to be able to come in and say, hey, I'll take over the payment sub 2 and give you 10 grand at closing. So with something like that, we could propose, hey, we could take over your payment subject to on the 300K, and then you can carry whatever 180K seller finance principal only payments of $200 a month, or however we want to structure it. But basically the hybrid deal is a combination of sub 2, which is taking over the payments, and then also the seller finance portion that one has with equity, if that made sense. Did that make sense?
Yeah. And where does like the down payment, like giving them a cash down payment, where does that come in? Because I feel like I'm using that as a crutch because I don't want to get like shut down by the agents or something. And it's not, I don't know if it's accurate.
Yeah. So that would be one thing kind of for us to see, to give you exact numbers in terms of, hey, how much money we can give to them at closing. And that's one thing when you're having conversations with these agents, if they're saying, well, how much are you offering down right now? Well, I'd have to really see it like a full number breakdown in terms of what that remaining mortgage balance is, the interest rate, the monthly payment, and then I could give you exact figures. But usually we can come in, we can take over someone's existing payments, and also put some cash in their pocket as well at closing. Just to give you exact numbers, though, I would definitely need to see an actual breakdown of kind of the monthly payment, the remaining balance, and things like that. And then that's pretty much basically it from there. But if they say, well, there's a lot of equity in this deal, then you could say, well, let me speak with my team, and you might be able to come in with more of a down payment, or potentially offer some sort of carry and pay that out over monthly payments over X amount of time. But the hybrids are a less likely scenario, because, not saying they still happen, don't get me wrong, they still happen, but why would someone do the hybrid when they have a lot of equity and can just price drop their listing and get the loan out of their name and still get a decent amount of cash in their pocket? So the hybrid, not saying they don't happen, because I've done them and people do them all the time, but they're definitely not as common as just the straight sub 2 deals.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I guess I'll get more familiar with it the more we do it too.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to go over. Or do you have any questions? And I'm sorry, what on your name here, what do you go by? Is it D?
And I really need to change that. That's my first name is Debbie, Debby.
Debbie. Okay, perfect.
Nice to
Great.
meet you.
I can do that too.
Now.
IE or Y?
Why? How did you know? Usually people don't ask, they just put IE. I'm like all excited. Really? Wow.
Yeah, my aunt actually goes by Y as well, which is not common.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because her legal name is Rebecca, which doesn't sound like Debbie at all. I don't know how she got the name Debbie, but everyone calls her Debbie, even her like clients. It's on her like business cards and everything like that. Yeah, with a Y.
That is really funny. Yeah, and then my legal name is, because people like to say Deborah or Deborah, but my legal name is Debbie.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Actually, it's Debbie.
And where are you from, Debbie?
I am in Tampa, Florida.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Working on decent amount of deals out there in Florida right now.
Yeah, that's why when you said Pacific, like my brain had to like, I was like, wait a minute, what is that?
Yeah. Alex and I are both like West Coast California on Pacific time. Which most people are. I mean, we have all different time zones. There's a couple people in the group that are in Australia, so they're like 14 hours ahead or something.
Wow.
Yeah. And then Juan, what about you? Where are you from? If you're there, let me unmute you. Or wait, I actually can't. Maybe he stepped away.
My bad.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, where are you from? Juan?
Well, I'm from Salt Lake, Utah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm on Mountain Daylight Time.
Gotcha. So
yeah, so I don't even know what that is though, but
yeah,
I've been trying to search it up and
1 hour ahead. 1 hour ahead of my time. So it should be like almost 6 for you, right? 5:54.
Yeah, 5:54 right now.
Nice.
So now that I know that I can hop on time.
Nice. I got to get people from Hawaii in here because that's like a whole different time zone you can tap into when you're 3 hours behind because everyone's always ahead. Because there's a handful of people on West Coast, but then most of them are like Midwest Central Time and some East Coast people. But there's only like a handful of people from Hawaii that I've spoken with because Hawaii, you got like a different. Well, I'm trying to think actually. If Hawaii's 3 hours behind, I guess you could call early morning in Hawaii, and then it would be like afternoon here, which would be a perfect time. So
Yeah, dude.
then we have people in Australia where it's like, I guess they could make calls at like midnight if they wanted, and it would be fine.
No, that's not bad.
Yeah,
Midnight calls.
yeah. Which I do everything late. Like I'm pretty much doing this stuff from like 8 a.m. till 2 a.m. or so, despite of course
Oh,
like eating and going to the gym and some other things. But I usually do like contracts and underwriting and stuff pretty late at night, and then in the daytime I'm doing like the calls and meetings and stuff.
oh,
Um,
that's what's up.
yeah, I'm gonna close these breakout rooms out right now, so everyone else will be popping
Joining
back
up.
in here. Yeah,
All right. Yeah, well, so
And I've
I
got
just
the
had like
Discord.
awesome.
one question was like I've been doing like a whole bunch of the cold calls
Uh-huh.
and everything, and I had like a little bit of practice because I did some before for this guy like who buys properties in cash, but like that's like a whole
Yeah.
different thing, you know. So,
Yeah.
but I tried and like I did like 20 calls or something, and most of them like at least 15 of them didn't answer, and like 4 of them did and stuff. But that's just statistics. But like you
Yeah.
got to keep on going and stuff.
Yeah. It's just gonna be a
Like,
numbers game, man. Yeah.
no,
Like
yeah,
20 I'd say like 200 calls, then that's like a good kind of pool of like, okay, this is where, my numbers look. All right, sorry, one sec. I'm gonna bring everyone back right now.
no, yeah, no problem.
Oh shoot, I almost just ended the meeting. There we go.
That would have been
All right,
funny.
60 seconds. That's how
No,
long.
yeah, but a lot of people while I was talking to them to the 4, it was just 4 of them. They were all like pretty mad because they heard like a lot of the stuff that we are looking for and needing.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to cooperate or give information because
Yeah,
of that.
that
reason.
happens. That definitely
Yeah.
happens. You'll see people in our general chat talk about that. It's just a numbers game though. Like, I do solar. Well, I'm pretty much pivoting out of solar and just doing this all the time now. But I still
Oh, that was
occasionally sell solar on the side a bit. And when I used to do some solar sales, I did more so recruiting, but you'd get a ton of rejection and like
yeah,
same way here, except it's worse with the solar because a lot of that you're going door to door and someone's telling you to your face, get the F
yeah,
off my
no,
property. Where I've told people like in the general chat, it was funny. Like a week ago, someone was saying, oh, it's just so nerve wracking, like making the calls, which I get it. Like when I started, I was nervous too. And I say it as a joke, but I'm not joking at the same time. Like it'll ease your nerves so much when you realize, like, okay, if I'm going to get a rude interaction or some agent might be mean to me, I literally don't know who this agent is. I'll probably never see them. And if the conversation's going poorly, I just click one little button on my phone and it ends the call, um, so that's what's super true, at least with the cold calling. You can really just treat it like a numbers game and you don't really have to worry about too much because it's as easy as just hanging up the call if an agent is really being rude or something like that.
yeah.
All right. I think everyone's back now. How did that role playing stuff go? And I also want to ask too, do people find this helpful? Because we're trying to decide if we want to do this like weekly or bi-weekly or monthly. It's just because if we're picking a topic every Zoom meeting, like I was telling Alex this, if like we're doing a topic every Zoom, like one Zoom we're doing underwriting, the next Zoom we're doing like sales training, the next Zoom is deciding what market to target, estimated repairs, what's the ARV on this, we're eventually going to run out of stuff to do unless we just repeat the stuff over and over again, which is always good. But we definitely want to mix it up. So I'm wondering if anyone has any suggestions with that or in terms of how they like doing like the role playing, maybe once a week or every other week or something like that. How did this all go for everyone today? Yeah, you can feel free to share, anyone.
Hey, this is Cherie. I just wanted to say I do think it's really helpful. Both times that we've done it this week, and I think I was on last Tuesday as well. I think I missed the Saturday one. but it's super helpful. Everyone has great feedback, even if they're a newbie, you know, even if they're at the same spot as you. One suggestion that I was thinking of when you were saying, you know, we're going to run out of things to do, it'd be really cool to do like rotating calls, like with you or Alex or someone that was
Gotcha.
really comfortable, where when you're like, oh, I'm screwing this up, I'm fumbling, like the other person doesn't know either. And so then the
Yeah.
feedback afterwards, it's helpful and it's helping you grow, but you could be getting a little bit more. So that's
Yeah.
my suggestion, is to do like rotating calls or somehow with you, and have people like be able to hop in on a call
Yeah.
and listen to
I
some of the
agree.
calls.
Yeah, we can
Cool.
definitely do that. That's a good idea. We could definitely do that. Maybe like as a group too. I mean, we could do it individually too. I just have to think of how we would. Pretty simple to structure that though. Literally just have a checklist of who's done it and who's not with either Alex or I. But then Alex and I could also do like a role play where it's just him and I, or you know, me and someone else in the group on the Zoom for everyone to listen to. Something like that. Or I was thinking too, even we could do, because I know some other groups have done this that I've seen, where they will basically do a like live, like people will live call agents and leads while they're in the group setting on Zoom. I was thinking of us doing something like that too. Um,
That would be dope. Yeah,
what do you guys think about that?
that would be
That's
dope. Yeah,
cool.
I would like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep,
Sounds good.
that'd be awesome.
Okay, cool. We could definitely start doing that then. Um, yeah, because we're really trying to like grow this and be very consistent with this too. So we want to make it as best as possible and beneficial as possible for everyone. Like I said, we're having the website being built out now. I know Ronald noticed it, but that we finally got some logos made. So we have like the logo now on the Discord name. And yeah, so hopefully that website's up in the next week. Then we'll get some testimonial videos from sellers that I've bought their houses from before, sub two, them explaining how the process went, how it was great. Then we can use that as leverage for other agents. And yeah, because I mean, other than Pace Morby, well, actually, I don't really know if Pace Morby is doing like acquisitions other than just all his people that are in his group bringing him deals to buy. But I don't know any other acquisitions team that is like building something super informative out on a website that explains everything in depth to agent and has recorded testimonial videos and things like that. Which I'm trying to do stuff that'll set us apart from other people to give us the best likelihood of closing these deals. So I think that's one thing that'll help a lot. But of course, like I was saying, Sebastian, like I have to just check on legality stuff in terms of, because now I'm redoing my whole corporate structure as well right now, because I set stuff up with Prime, and yeah, it's not the greatest. And Alex and I have been talking about that, so we're probably going to work with some attorneys now and restructure things, and we just want to make sure everything's structured and sound and properly created. And that's one thing I just thought of too. I guess that's something we can share too, like our experience with structuring these deals. And kind of course we're not attorneys and it's not legal advice too, but just in terms of how we're setting up and structuring things, whether it's acquisitions meaning like wholesaling LLCs, or like buy and holds, how we're setting up our trusts, how we're setting up our LLCs and our entities to hold properties and things like that. Because that's something that I've been putting a lot of time into the last couple months and learning as we've been trying to build out our own portfolio and scale that. So that's a learning curve and a learning process for me now, because I wasn't really doing that previously. I was mainly just wholesaling everything, but now we're trying to keep pretty much everything. So yeah, thanks for that suggestion. Sorry, that was just a random, sometimes I'll just go off on random side tangents. Any feedback or anything from anyone else then in terms of how the calling went today, and any suggestions maybe for, I have ideas, but any suggestions for maybe a topic on Saturday that someone would find helpful in terms of us picking one topic to kind of go over for most of the meeting? Because I think one we did last week was comping properties, and then the other one before that was underwriting properties and kind of exploring wraps a little bit. Just wondering if anyone has any other suggestions that they think would be valuable to themselves to see. And if not, totally fine. Just think about something and we could share it in suggestions or something like that. But if no one has any questions or anything, any last questions or comments before I'm going to end the meeting here in the next minute or so? Anything from anyone? I think, are you unmuted, Juan?
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking right now. What if we do some like how to find like a good house after you give us the list? You know how we have to find like the all the other little factors to see if the house is like good after we call or whatever we
Yeah.
figure out from the buyer. What if we do something like that so that we know what to look exactly from the silo and stuff, and then go on to the calls? Because
Yeah.
we already
So
got the scripts and everything ready. So
yeah. So are you just talking about in terms of condition of the house or what
yeah,
exactly?
like why not go more into all that stuff and then
Yeah.
we could go
Yeah.
off onto the calls after.
So actually one thing we did actually our last meeting or 2 meetings ago, we did that. It was like comping where I was like showing different properties and how like, hey, the one we're looking at here is a 4-bed, 3-bath. This one's a 3-3. So we would add make an additional change there with the ARV, or we would do this change here. This one's in a slightly different neighborhood than this one. So we would subtract this amount from that price. And this is what you're looking for. Like we actually already did a Zoom like that recently, which I don't mind redoing them, but we actually have those Zooms posted in shoot. I know they're posted. Let me see. Alex usually does a lot of this stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
they're posted in announcements.
All right.
So yeah, they're definitely up there. We should be posting those on YouTube soon, but we could definitely retouch and go more in depth on that. But I wouldn't even really worry about that because if anything's on a list that you're calling, I would just call it anyway. Because if something's a major fixer or something like that, likely they'll be just disqualified from this list because this list is more so
Okay.
targeted at like those more turnkey low equity homes. You're not really going to get a lot of like fixer uppers
All
on
right.
there. And then I'm pretty much buying anything that's turnkey and doesn't need a lot of repairs, which is what most of this stuff we come across is. Unfortunately, there are some though that you don't see. Like it could look super nice because there's like 2 deals in the last month and a half that I've canceled on because they look super nice on pictures, and then we send an inspector, and then the foundation is like shot and needs a bunch of foundational repairs and stuff. But yeah, I'll definitely think about that. How we could go more in depth on that on a future meeting here. Thanks for sharing.